Welcome to the Seasons Leadership Podcast. This is Susan Ireland, co-founder of Seasons Leadership. Today, I had the privilege of talking with Dr. Jen Self, the queer JEDI, and we'll talk to you more about what that means in the podcast. They are the owner-principal of Brick 13, the founding director of the University of Washington's Q Center, an assistant clinical professor at the UW School of Social Work and Gender, Women, and Sexuality Studies, a Leadership Tomorrow 24 participant, as well as an author, researcher, practitioner of foundational work leading to the development of anti-racist and intersectional higher education, LGBTQIA+ student services, an international speaker, and through it all, a strategist, coach, consultant, educator, and mental health provider. Dr. J came into the world as a catalyst for change and credits their experience as a gender outlaw and the relationships they formed playing Pac-12 basketball for Cal as the impetus for their life's dedication to intersectional racial and gender justice. The conversation was great. I learned a lot, and I know you will too. Well, here we are. Welcome, Dr. J.
Thank
We're
you.
both in Seattle, so
I know, right?
Fun.
Who
We
knew?
actually could have come here. I mean, we could have been in the same room.
That's right. That's right. But we don't do that anymore. Humans, we're just like, Zoom all the time.
I know. I'm trying. I've actually had over the summer, I did a podcast with somebody, and we were sitting on my deck. It was
Nice.
great.
That's very cool. Yeah.
It was great. It was great. Well, tell us about yourself, maybe Brick 13, what you're up to.
Sure. Well, I have spent most of my life doing working in higher ed and doing a lot of gender, sexuality, and race studies. So I've done a lot of anti-racist work. Well, I say I started in higher ed, but really, I have worked across industries. I've worked in almost any industry you can think of, doing anti-racist work, gender, sexuality, and right before the pandemic, I was the director of the University of Washington Q Center, which is I helped found that as the Gender and Sexuality Center there. And right before the pandemic, I had decided it's time for me to step down. I've been here, 17 years. It got this going. Time to get out of the way. So I quit. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, oh no, what is happening? And like many people, I was looking for work during the pandemic, and it really just kind of forced me to finally do what I wanted to do, which was to be a coach, consultant, strategist, and really specifically focus on working with organizations and leaders who want to embed equity and anti-racism within their work. And so that's what Brick 13 does. And I partner with a lot of different consultants and educators around the Puget Sound area. In fact, we're part of a coalition came together during the pandemic called the Equity Institute. And so there are a lot of us who have been meeting ever since, I think it was, July 2020. And we do a lot of work together.
Wow. I just want to kind of rewind. So
Sure.
Did the Q Institute, am I saying that right? At
It's
the
Q Center.
Q
Yeah.
Center?
Yeah.
You were there for 17 years?
Yeah, I was there for 17 years. And a lot of that time was, we were just starting the center. So a lot of that time was, I was a grad student who was also running the center or building the center with the students. Because that was one of the great things about the University of Washington is that the student voice really matters there. They have a lot of power. And so working with them in coalitions to build that was moving for my own life, and also just an incredible experience to see a group of very different people come together and create something that has now, we were ranked the #1 university in the world in terms of how we are affirming of LGBTQIA+ students, and how we focus on intersectionality in that work.
Well, I'm an alum of the UW as well.
Yeah.
I had no idea this was happening.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
I'm very proud of that. I mean, 17 years is a long time ago.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It is.
that's
And it's
wonderful.
going strong. There's a new director there, and they are doing such a great job, and it's really transitioned well. The students really have made it theirs, and yeah, it's an incredible place.
That is fantastic. Well, it kind of ties in, all of that work is the result of, I would say, excellent leadership.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Well, and this is what Seasons Leadership is all about, is leadership excellence, and it shows up differently for different people. But
Yeah.
so I'd like you to talk about, what does that excellent leadership mean to you?
Whew, okay, so for me, because of who I am in the world, because of like my experiences as um, a person who didn't fit into any genders, genderqueer, and I knew I was queer from a really young age, and I was always seeking justice, and I was always looking for people in the world who I think experienced the world similar to me, not exactly like me, but like I was always drawn to figuring out, well, what is this racism about? But I didn't get a lot of good teaching about that, right? I got a lot of good teaching about white supremacy, but not a lot of good teaching about how to undo that until I was in college. And so I was a college basketball player. I played at Cal, and really that experience working with my teammates, who we were a team that was like mostly Black women, but also multiracial. And so in that experience, I started really having conversations with people for the kind of the first time around their experiences with race and racism, my experiences with homophobia, transphobia, and really hearing from each other. And then it was also the time when when we had that first recording of police brutality with Rodney King.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that kind of coalesced to make me realize that in this country, really excellent leadership means, how do we actually look at the systems that we've built and deconstruct the ways that they have built in inequity and built in bias and built in things that actually harm a lot of people and don't provide access. And so as a very young person who didn't really know how to lead very well, I knew that what I could do is start undoing that stuff in me. And that eventually, as I started to undo that, I would be able to have more external action. And so that really led me to a lot of different kinds of feminisms to read about, like Black feminism and critical race theory and critical queer theory. Now, you don't have to do all that to be an excellent leader, but that was my path to really understanding power. And so I started to, and I was also trained as a therapist. So I was getting all of these tools about like how to listen to people, how to be with people, and also like how to actually confront and understand my prejudices, and then behave in a different way that allows and creates more space for folks. So my leadership really is about creating access and space and room for people's genius to show up. And it's honestly about like setting a stage and getting out of the way. That's what I have found leadership to be about.
Mm-hmm. And that so resonates with what Seasons Leadership and Debbie and I would like to focus on.
Yeah.
And that is so hard to do.
It's very difficult.
In a I don't know, it's in, I guess, a society or structure where that's not the norm.
No, it is not the norm.
So how do you show up like that, consistently?
Yeah. Well, it's taken a lot of different decisions on my part, and let's just be real. I consistently, like, that means across time, because there were lots of mistakes in there, lots of ways that I didn't enact this the way I wanted to. And but part of being consistent is being reflective and reflexive about what you're doing and how it is impacting people, and is it really reaching the results that you want. And so a lot of times in my leadership, it was about It was about being accountable and owning up to the things that I did that didn't quite work, or that hurt somebody, or that didn't pay attention to this thing that was happening. And so a lot of that has been about being willing to say, I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do now to repair that? What are the experiences you're having as my staff? What can we learn from this? What can I learn from this? And then shifting my behavior as a leader. And I don't think that's a model of leadership that we see a lot either.
No.
Right?
Well, it's kind of, I think, what I've experienced, and, people, I think for the most part, people are doing the best they can with what they
Yeah,
got.
that's right.
And sometimes not very good.
Yeah,
But
that's right. That's right.
yeah. And so, you're like, you're in this quagmire,
Yeah,
trying to do the best you can, and you've got pressure, but from your upper
yep,
management, from boards, from to deliver results
yeah,
fast, and you're trying to survive. And so when you're trying to survive, um sometimes it's really hard to behave right, and you feel bad, right? And but you still
yeah,
keep doing it. And
yeah.
so we're in these systems that perpetuate this.
Yeah, absolutely. I teach at the University of Washington in gender, women's sexuality studies, and also in social work. And just this morning, I was having a conversation with a group of undergrads, and saying, we are trapped in racialized capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
We are trapped in it, and every single thing that we do, it really doesn't matter, has some sort of negative impact or negative connotation or negative association. And so what we have to be constantly asking ourselves as change makers is, how do I do the very best I can to know what the choices are I'm making,
Mm-hmm.
and to try to live in alignment with my values, and when I get off, bring myself back.
Mm-hmm.
But we are set up to fail. We are set up to fail by a system that makes it impossible for us to make absolutely clean decisions at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in leadership, sometimes we have to take risks, and that's really scary. And I know that some of us are positioned with privilege that protects us in ways that it doesn't protect other people.
Mm-hmm.
So how we take risks and how we choose to take them is really based upon our knowledge of the world and our own life experience, and what we know will put us in the crossfires and what we know won't. So, even just saying that to somebody, like, get in alignment and do blah, blah, they're like, that's not one thing you can say to somebody. You
Yeah.
have to say, like, you have to know best for yourself what is going to work for you and what is going to keep you safe, but also push the limits a little bit.
It's also what's coming up for me when you're talking is that it helps, I think, to surround yourself with people who will tell you the truth.
Yes, that's
and
right.
and give you some different perspectives.
Yep.
I just feel that's a responsibility of a leader, to not be so insular and only listen to
Yeah. Absolutely. Collective
Yeah.
leadership is where it's at. Like, really, I mean, surrounding yourself with people not who are like you, but who are actually think very differently from you, have skill sets that you don't have imaginations that you don't have, and whatever you're creating is going to be so much stronger, so much better, if you are a leader who is able to really set a stage for all of those geniuses to arise and really be enacted. Yeah, that is my job. My job is to surround myself by people who have way more interesting ideas than I do, even though I think I have interesting ideas, because my idea will either go away, dissipate, and be like, okay, that wasn't good, that was better, or it'll become 10 times better, because we're all putting in what we're thinking about.
So you've been in this business for a long time now.
Yeah.
Are you seeing more leaders that are able to do this?
Yes. Yes. And the truth of the matter is there have been a lot of leaders, there are a lot of leaders like in particular in Black and brown communities and indigenous communities and queer communities who are doing that kind of leadership within our communities and have been for years,
Mhm.
but haven't had the same access to some of the places that we've wanted to be. And now, slowly but surely, we are seeing more of these kinds of leaders be in positions of true authority where they can run a business or an organization or a unit or whatever in the way that they want to. And so, yeah, we're seeing all sorts of different kinds of leadership that we've absolutely needed.
That's hopeful.
Yeah, it is a little hopeful. It's a little hopeful, but let's don't get too excited because those systems are of power and privilege are still really in place. The thing that has been so cool to see, like I'm thinking about the entertainment industry where Black and brown artists just were like, I'm not waiting for this. I'm going to become a quadruple threat. I'm going to be a producer, a writer, an actor, a singer, and all of these things. And I'm going to hire everybody. And and they have just transformed entertainment in the last just decade has just been amazing to see that happen.
That's fantastic. So, where are you focusing on now going forward?
I focus on, well, in my partnerships, I will work with organizations. So, like, one of the things that's really important to me is that I don't do anti-racism work by myself, because I think that it's, well, one, I don't have the, I don't have the experience of living under racism. And so even if I can intellectualize it, I'm not going to be able to know those feelings or existence. So I always partner with Black and brown people to do organizational work. Um, Sometimes I will work with white leaders by myself, and it's really about coaching people how to actually put anti-oppression work into action. There's so many folks who want to understand this, want to do things differently, want to enact this, but get frozen in fear or feeling like they don't know how. And so really having a coach to help you walk through it and start to engage and start to do the things and see the results, and also know what to do if there's a mistake. You've made a mistake and you need to figure that out too. So I really like to work with leaders to strategize and embed and activate these kinds of values.
That's great. That's good. Well, I hope you're busy.
Well, I'm fairly busy. Yes, I could be busier, but I am pretty busy. Yeah.
That's good. That's also hopeful, right?
Yes. Yeah.
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 So I love the term JEDI.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, it's an acronym for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. I think a lot of people realize, oh, it's JEDI, and that's cool. That's like something that people really recognize and resonate with. And so then, I of course, whatever our complaints are and criticisms are of Star Wars, and there are many, I still loved it. And so,
I do too.
so I really just resonated with Jedi, and then so I started calling myself the queer Jedi, and it's very catchy. So I figured, and it also speaks to like that often in work around justice and equity, when we're talking about race and anti-racism, that is directly connected to sexism and transphobia, and in fact the most vulnerable people in the world are trans, Black and brown, indigenous people. And so if we're not thinking about gender and queerness as we're doing this anti-racist work, then I think we're missing a really big piece of it, and it's an important piece to notice.
So I'm wondering, because we talked about the leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about people who are working in systems.
Yes.
That aren't yet maybe as JEDI friendly.
Yeah,
as
for
they
sure.
need to be.
Yes.
How what advice or how do we help those people survive?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a whole group of people for whom um, conversation and training and all of the stuff that we kind of try to do in organizations really that's not the way that that's not the way that they're going to take away information and put it into their minds and make a change. So there may be just some people that we're just going to always disagree. So there's that group, right?
Yeah.
But there's a whole group of people who either just don't know a lot about this or didn't, we live in a very racially isolated country.
Mm-hmm.
And so why would any of us have good information about across race? None of us would have good information about that. And it's purposeful around systemic power to keep all of us sort of thinking that there are particular ways of being, and those are all kind of rooted in whiteness and maleness. And so there's a lot of that. So we are all in this situation very purposefully.
Mm-hmm.
So part of what my approach is really about like compassion for all of us, and that we're really just talking about information here. Like let's just have these conversations in ways that we can all learn from each other, and we can learn to create and make the world that we want, because that is possible. I don't believe that people are sitting around. I mean, most people, there are probably some people.
Yes, yeah.
Most people are not sitting around thinking, how can I make this world terrible for other people? That's not what people are sitting around thinking.
Yeah. I agree with you. The thing that I guess I worry about for myself is, I'm trying to think of how I put this, is that I want to engage in those conversations, but it feels like it lays a lot of burden on the person of color, because they're explaining themselves.
Yes, right.
How unfair is that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for years and years and years, we being white people have just really relied upon I mean, it could be anybody, a stranger. Like, we're just like, I have no relationship with you, but I'm just going to ask you to explain a bunch of stuff to me. Right.
Yeah.
And that is really invasive and hard. And it's a lot of effective labor for that person. So it's one of the reasons that I feel really passionate about doing this work as a white person, is that I think that we really have to be engaged in this. And there are ways that I believe that it's more ethical and appropriate to do that. And that's by really listening and being in relationship with Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, and really trying to break across this racial isolation. So I think white people have a place in this movement. We have to have a place in this movement, because we are the ones that are upholding white supremacy over and over and over again.
Right.
So yeah, we cannot just put the burden on Black and brown people. No.
So can we give like some ideas? You can like just tell me, Susan, this is what you need to go do. Because I do feel hesitant, I feel like I don't want to do something bad. So then what I default to is not doing anything at all, which is not good either.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so much of this honestly is starting with educating her. So people get this far and then they don't go much further. So I want to say, starting with the education of ourselves is great, but if that never shifts into action, then that's a problem, right? We're just isolating our own work and centering ourselves. So the idea is that we start with ourselves, not because that's where the most important work is. We center ourselves in that beginning work because we have to know who we are. And part of being in a culture of whiteness is that white people have given up so many things about who we are. And we've started believing in a culture that actually is a system of power. It's not a cultural, it is not a cultural heritage. Like, whiteness is not a cultural heritage. It's a power. It's a system of power. And just confronting that and being like, oh, well, who am I then if what I've been taught is just about having power? And so we have to really start to understand ourselves and get educated about others and how this stuff works in systems. And then we can start to take action. And often we need support in taking that action because we might think, oh, I know exactly what to do. And then we do not know exactly what to do. So that's why the education is so important, and continuing to do research and reflection and checking and all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the things that comes up a lot for folks around this kind of work is that we will do a thing or we'll try a thing, and then maybe it doesn't go exactly how we wanted it to. And so then we're like, I give up. I can't do this. I'm scared, or I'm frustrated. And all of those things are real, like being frustrated and scared, and that's all real. And I think what needs to move us through that place is realizing that, one, we are going to mess up. We absolutely are going to mess up. And two, that what I know is that people who are experiencing various forms of oppression, right now we're talking about race, but racism, is that what they're wanting to see is white people who are engaged and who are willing to risk and make mistakes, and then be able to hear from folks what happened and the impact, and that we actually take that in and let ourselves be transformed by the experiences of other people and believe the truth of other people and let that truth into us. Because, so often we have been taught, this is the truth, this is the truth, this is the truth, this is the truth. And really, in this world, there are hundreds and thousands of different truths, and a lot of the truth that we have been ignoring is that the way that this systems have been running have been harmful, helpful to some, harmful to many. And that's not what we want.
Right.
That's not what we want. And I know that's not what most white people want, but I think we get caught up in this, like, oh my God, I'm going to be seen as racist. And that becomes terrifying. And that just can't be terrifying, because we are set up to be racist.
Right.
We're set up to be racist. So of course that's going to happen, but we can move through that. We can move through that discomfort. We just have to know that we can, and that it's okay, that we're not perfect.
And just give ourselves some grace, all of us.
Yeah, all of us, everybody, give ourselves some grace and know that we're moving towards something that could be and should be so much richer and with more love and more connection. And it actually brings white people back into our humanity to do this work. It brings us back into really who we are, and connect across to other people's humanity.
Yeah, to the full extent, right?
Yeah.
So what would your dream for us all to set as a goal for 2024?
I mean, if I could get in every person's head, I would say, like, think about the world you want to live in, and get really close into yourself about, like, what's a first step I could take to this. And I'll tell you, I'll go back to what I said about when Rodney King was beaten up by police officers, and we all got to see that, all of us who were there got to see this video. What that did to me is I knew that there was police violence against Black people. I knew that was a reality, and it had been so erased from our vision that one of the things that white supremacy does is out of sight, out of mind. Out of sight, out of mind. Let's just erase that, and then we don't have to even deal with it or talk about it, and no one can see it, and then we don't have to feel it. So when I saw that, and I started having I had already been having a lot of conversations with my teammates, but they started telling me about all the times they had been stopped for driving while Black, or all the ways they had been scared being a Black woman in America, and all the ways they had been treated, just here and there and every single day. And the decision I made in that moment was, I don't know totally how to do this anti-racism stuff. I don't know. But what I do know is that when I look out in the world, what I see from people like me who are white is that we don't do anything consistently. And if I can just wake up each day and decide to think about this anti-racism as the core of my work and do it consistently in some way every day, that eventually I'll put enough of those days together that my life will have changed, my leadership will have changed, the impact I'm having on the world has changed. And that's what this is about. It's a long game. So we've all got to get invested in the long game.
That's beautiful, Dr. J.
Thank you. Thanks.
That is very inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're going to start wrapping up. How do people get in touch with you? What do you have to offer?
I have so many things to offer.
Yes.
You can, you can find me at brick13.com, which is my website. You can find me on TikTok at Queer JEDI. You can email me directly at drjenself@brick13.com. I'm on LinkedIn. Please connect there. I have written a lot of articles. They're out there in academia, but I've also written a lot of articles that are on Medium. And what I can offer, I offer coaching, I offer strategy, I work with organizations to do strategic planning. I do a lot of queer leadership work. And in fact, I'm working on, I'm cooking up something that we hope to launch in 2024 with several other partners that I think could be really life-changing for queer leaders, and also for people who are really thinking about how do we deconstruct leadership in the way that it's currently operating. So there are a lot of things going on. Please just contact me and we can talk.
Great. We'll put it all in the show notes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we'll stay connected.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciated this. This is fun.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us today. We hope that you were inspired by this conversation.
And we invite you to join our community on Patreon. See the link below. There you will find more resources to help you on your leadership journey.
Make sure to join us next time for more conversation about leadership excellence.